gonna be just like senior year, except for funner.
Hey guys, I'm Kendra.
Hi, I'm Mercedes, and this week we're talking about the original J.Lo rom-com, The Wedding Planner.
But first, guys, welcome back to the month of J.Lo. As you know, we are dedicating this entire month to the icon herself, and we're doing a deep dive into one of her rom-coms every single week. But first, of course, we always have to kick it off with our celebrity crush of the week. Mercedes, who you crushing on this week?
Oh my gosh, so this might be a little off the cuff, but Larry David.
All
I
87 years of him.
Literally, I love Larry David. He has a new documentary coming out in March on HBO,
Oh.
and I'm so excited to learn more about him. I adore him. I've seen every episode of Seinfeld and Curb multiple times, so I'm a
What
big
is the
fan.
documentary going to be about?
It's just going to be about his life and like his journey through comedy and just, him being
Just him.
bald.
being Larry David. Did you see his Super Bowl commercial this year?
Yes, and then it ended up just being for crypto, and I was so startled. I was like, does he even know what crypto is?
I know,
The whole
right?
time I was like, how did they get him to do this?
That is so funny. Okay, well, Larry David, hello. Never thought of him that way, but now I'm gonna look at him differently. Okay, so this is my dilemma. Okay,
Ooh.
if you know me, you know one of my all-time favorite shows is Game of Thrones, kind of like every other person on this planet. But like, I have a Game of Thrones tattoo on my back. I got it in Ireland because they shot
wow.
like part of Game of Thrones in Ireland, and I did like the Game of Thrones tour. We did the Dark Hedges and stuff.
Oh, how
But
cool.
so when Game of Thrones, before this last season, I would watch Game of Thrones from the beginning and then watch it all the way through to the recent episode.
Wow.
And then when I was done, I would do it again. I've seen Game of Thrones like from season 1 all the way through so many times. And so I've been thinking about doing that again, but every time I think about starting watching it again, because I don't know why I'm just a habitual watcher,
Same.
I think of that last season where it is. Did you see it?
So I've only seen season 1 of Game of Thrones, and I didn't even finish that one, I don't think.
Okay.
But I've heard the discourse on that last season.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just, it puts such a bad taste in my mouth. I can't get it out of my head. Every single time I'm like, yes, I'm going to start Game of Thrones again because it's so good. I just think of that last season if I have to go through that again. Like, that was painful for me. All of that to say is that my celebrity crush of the week is Joe Dempsey. And he played Gendry in Game of Thrones, who you wouldn't know because he wasn't in season. He was in season 1, but he was like very briefly.
Okay.
But he's such a good actor. He actually was in this limited series called Retribution that I watched, and he was just like fire in it. And I don't know how many people watched that, but he was so good. And I knew him before Game of Thrones because I used to watch like all UK TV shows, and I used to watch him in Skins, and he was so
Oh,
cute.
he's in Skins.
He's in Skins, yeah. I have to remember his character's name, but he is in Skins.
Okay.
But he just seems like such a nice guy, and he's so cute with his little eyes and his brown hair. I just love him. Anyways, Joe Dempsey, if you're listening to this, please slide my DMs. I would love that.
Yes. Get it, Kendra.
Get it? Yes. All right, guys. We are going to move to the TLDR. This is just where we summarize the movie for anyone who hasn't seen it. Again, we're talking about The Wedding Planner, and this is a fair warning. There are spoilers in this. You can go stream it on Peacock. Mary, played by the icon Jennifer Lopez, has just always loved love and weddings, so it makes sense that she grew up to become a wedding planner. She is just such a boss at what she does. She is super organized, and she can anticipate problems and already has solutions. She's so good at making people's big dates come true, but she's alone in her life. She does have a really close relationship with her father, who lives in a nursing home with some very colorful friends. Her father sees she needs someone and recruits Massimo, played by Justin Chambers, who she spent summers with when growing up in Italy. But of course, Mary is not persuaded. She's just incredibly ambitious and has a goal to become a partner at the wedding planning firm that she works at. She negotiates this with her boss by waging if she lands the big wedding account of Francine Donnelly, of food heiress of sorts, then she should be made partner. With the help of her assistant, played by Judy Greer, Mary lands the account. But of course, as fate would have it, after a freak shoe incident in the street, Mary is saved by a handsome doctor named Steve, played by Matthew McConaughey. They share a beautiful movie night in the park where they almost share a first kiss. And I say almost because thank goodness they did it, because Mary learns that Steve, aka Eddie, is actually the groom in the Donnelly wedding. Tensions rise throughout the film as Mary is forced to go along to different venues and events with Eddie and his bride-to-be. All the while, Massimo is still chasing after Mary. My favorite moment comes when Massimo proposes to Mary properly, and she accepts. The wedding is called off when her father realizes that she couldn't be happy with him, and Eddie calls off his wedding when both he and Fran realize they're not right for each other anymore. And we all know what happens next. Eddie and Mary meet back up in the park where they shared their first beautiful night, and the rest is history. So, this is a 2001 film directed by Adam Shankman, who you know from A Walk to Remember. Oh my
Oh,
God.
so good.
So good. He also did Hairspray, which I love.
I
And
love,
then
yes.
one of my favorite rom-coms, I will always say this, Going the Distance with Justin Long and Drew
Oh,
Barrymore.
yes.
He also directed that.
Underrated.
Underrated. Thank you. God, Justin Long is everything. I just
You love every episode because
Every
like, so Justin
episode.
Long.
Justin Long, yeah. Every time, I mean, dude, if we're talking about rom-coms, Justin Long is gonna come up a lot.
I can't wait till we do a Justin Long movie.
I know it's gonna be epic. I will not shut up about it. But Mercedes, tell me some fun industry facts you got about this.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so this was Shankman's debut feature, which is pretty major.
Really?
Yeah. And
Hmm.
also it marked the beginning of the J.Lo Matthew McConaughey rom-com careers.
Yeah.
So, and like they really defined the early 2000s. They're like two of the rom-com early 2000 era people. Like Kate Hudson, we know,
Yep.
and like all those guys, they're all part of the same crew, you know? So like, and I personally think that like the best actors in Hollywood were probably leading men in rom-coms in the past.
Yeah.
You need that era in your career because they're
Yeah.
just more charming, you know?
Was
And
Denzel Washington ever like in rom-coms? I'm trying to think of his.
he was, you know what he's in? He's in Mississippi Masala. Have you seen it?
I have not seen that.
Oh my God. It's the Mira Nair movie and it's so good. It just went to Criterion.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
So I will watch that because I'm thinking when I think of like great Hollywood actors, he's the very first one that
Oh,
comes to mind.
definitely. It's definitely more of like a rom-dram, but it's so good. I love
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will have to
Yeah.
watch that. Okay.
I really do think that like J.Lo and Matthew McConaughey defined like early 2000s rom-com Hollywood, just like Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant did in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like they were that next generation, you know? And also this was Judy Greer. I think it was her first rom-com. It was either her first or her second. And like we know her as the BFF in all rom-coms. So
In
like
all
that's
rom-coms.
major.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so funny too because they don't get married in the end, and then that also happened in 27 Dresses, and I just thought that was really
Yeah.
funny. Like, and she's in
know.
both of them.
Oh, I love her.
So, fun fact, did you know that Brendan Fraser was supposed to play Matthew McConaughey's role and
Oh
Sarah
my
Michelle
God.
Gellar was supposed to play Jennifer Lopez's role? But they had scheduling conflicts, so they both weren't able to do it. So Sarah Michelle Gellar was still doing Buffy, and then Brendan Fraser was doing something else. But how much different would this movie be today if it starred those two instead of
Oh my
Matthew
God.
J.Lo?
Imagine George of the Jungle and Buffy. I would love it. I would love it just the same.
I would too also. I saw this on the internet that there's a scene where Mary is talking to Penny, Judy Greer's character. And she's just like, Massimo would ask me if I had a vagina. He would walk around when we were kids, ask me if I had a vagina. And then Penny is like, well, maybe he just wants to be a doctor. And then we know that Justin Chambers is famous for playing a
Yes.
doctor on Grey's Anatomy. So he did grow up to be a doctor.
A lot of people don't put two and two together that he's in The Wedding Planner because of that crazy accent he does.
Yeah, yeah.
And then people are like, oh my God, that's him. And you're like, yes, that accent wasn't good.
I was supposed to ask you, what did you think of that accent? Because I'm thinking, like, is that Italian or is that, does he have like a...
It's so chaotic. Like, like part of it, he's just talking gibberish, but you know, I love him. He's still beautiful.
I do too. And I also, okay, we're going to get into it, but I really like Massimo. Anyway.
Oh, I'm excited. So I read in the production notes that this was originally inspired by an ad about how to become a wedding planner course just at like a community college or something that the writers saw. And then they were like, okay, no, we need to go to like a bridal trade show. We need to interview these wedding planners and learn more about the industry because they loved the combination of romance and like logistics. I don't know, events like that. Like you really have to take it all into one and combine it all, which I love.
I think that's really interesting because you saw, like, in the beginning, Mary is so organized and she's really good at anticipating problems. And even when, like, that woman comes in and she gets a tan, it looks really bad. She's like, just use some lemon juice.
Yeah.
Like, I like
She
that.
knows everything. She always has her little kit, her like
Yeah.
little first aid kit, emergency kit. I love
Yeah.
it. Also, I read that Shankman described the four characters as like completely different extremes on views of love. So Mary's supposed to be the cynic. Steve is the loyal one, Fran is practical, and then Massimo's our open-hearted. Just
Oh.
he's just full of love. And I think that's such a good framing for this because it takes the villainization out of the conversation, which I mean, we could argue that Matthew McConaughey's character is the villain in
Is the
some ways.
villain, right?
Yeah.
Because they
But
always go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, no, I just love it that they didn't frame it as like sweet, wholesome Mary versus like evil Fran because I
Yeah.
hate that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think too, like this one, especially today, is a bit more relatable because how many people do we know that have been together since college? I don't know about you, but I know a ton. And so,
I know a couple.
yeah. And I just look at them and I'm like, are you guys still in love though? Like, do you still like each other? So it's kind of, I felt like I knew Fran on a personal level because she's in my friend group, right? Like,
You know her.
yeah, I know her exactly.
Yes.
All right, guys, this is time for Time Capsule. Mercedes and I just like to recall where we were when we first saw this movie. So again, this movie came out in 2001. Mercedes, how old were you and what were you doing?
Oh my goodness. So I was 5. So I don't remember the first time I saw this movie, but I do remember being obsessed when I was in middle school because it would come on like E and ABC Family all the time on the
Yep.
weekends. They would always have either like J.Lo weekends or like rom-com weekends. And I ate it up. Oh my God. This is how dedicated I was. I bought it on iTunes and would watch it on my iPod Touch. Like
Wow.
that is how you know that you love something. And now my views have probably changed, but I just remember loving it. And like the whole montage at the beginning of like J.Lo, of Mary being this type A cleaner, like her whole apartment's so organized. She's like vacuuming her curtains just alone. And I think it's supposed to be kind of sad, but to me, I always thought about it as like so aspirational because she
Yeah.
was just so put together. And I was like, yes, she's the dream. I love her.
That's so funny. So I was about 9 years old. I don't remember where I was when I first saw this movie, but I know it was at some point, maybe in middle school. I don't know why. I have a very hard time remembering certain things from elementary school. Like even like
Same.
5th grade where I was like clearly a human. Like,
It's hard. It was so long ago.
It was so long ago. But you know what I do remember about being 9 years old? So I was about in 3rd grade, I think. And that was a tough year for me because I had a very rude 3rd grade teacher, and it was Miss Ross. And she was like that teacher. You know how at the end of the year, the previous year, they read to you who your next teacher is going to be for the following year? Everyone in 2nd grade was like, not Miss Ross, not Miss Ross.
Oh my God.
I got Miss Ross. But also that year, I got really good at math. So you wouldn't know this about me, but like I was kind of like a math star.
Oh my
in
gosh,
school.
mathematician.
Not even like I wasn't part of like a math league or anything like that, but like okay, during this time, my dad thought the idea of a fun summer was doing math problems. So he like went to the bookstore, got a math textbook, and we would have to sit there and do math problems every day before we were allowed to go outside and play.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, dads love math. What is that?
So I hate to admit it, but it did help because at this point, like we would have contests. She would give us a times table. So it'd be like your 2 times table, your 9 times table.
Oh, yeah.
And there would be like all of these problems on it. And whoever finished first got a piece of candy. Mercedes, don't ever tempt me with candy because I will move heaven and earth.
That's your
I love
motivation.
candy. That is my
Yes.
motivation, especially 9-year-old Kendra. So I just remember like always being the first one in class to finish and get all of them right. And I'd always get the lemon head and everyone would be giving me a sour face like, oh, Kendra got the candy. But whatever. I don't even use
My
math.
goodness, our very own mathematician.
Do you remember who you like had a crush on that year when you were
So
5?
I don't remember I don't remember any crushes, but okay, Lizzie McGuire premiered the same month that this movie came out. So I know that this was a major Disney Channel moment for me. So that's like the first time I saw Ethan Kraft, which was huge.
Yeah.
And like even Gordo, by the end I was team Gordo, but at the beginning I was like Ethan Kraft and his floppy hair. I loved him.
Have I told you that my old roommate from college is engaged to Gordo? In
Oh
real
my
life?
God. Oh wait, yes. I think we have talked about this.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
But I was shocked all over again.
That's literally.
I thought you were about to say Ethan Kraft this time, and I was like, hang on.
Do you think he's hot still now, Ethan Kraft?
Probably not.
I know. We'll have to look him up afterwards.
I hope. Wishful
So-
thinking.
Wishful thinking. I remember that year. So I grew up in a predominantly white society. Like I was one of like very few black kids, and like especially in elementary school, I was usually the only black kid in my class. But I remember that year we got Andrew White in my class,
Oh my
and he was
goodness.
black, and he was my very first crush on a black guy.
Iconic.
Iconic. And it was so funny. It was ironic as well because his last name was White, but
I know. Oh, I love that.
Had the biggest crush on him that year.
I just love any crush that has double names. Anytime you know the first and last name, you're like, yes, this was important.
Exactly. We have talked about this double name thing too. All right, guys, welcome to the Rom-Com Hall of Fame. First, of course, Mercedes, we have to roast this movie. This movie is over 20 years old. So obviously a lot of it, there's some parts that don't age well, but tell me what you think.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so my biggest gripe is that J.Lo is Italian. Mary is an Italian woman, and we know Jennifer Lopez is Latina. So I will never understand the reasoning for this. It is so unnecessary. She could have easily just been Latina.
Yep.
But you know what? It's what's done is done. It's the worst part of this movie for me, and there are many criticisms. But
you know what's so funny is, again, I didn't even remember that she was Italian. When I was rewatching it this time for us to talk about, I was like, oh, wait, she's Italian?
It doesn't make any sense. It makes zero sense.
I feel like, okay, so there's this part where Mary's boss makes a comment to the florist, and she's like, if you put carnations in my bouquet again, I will deport you. And I just I do not think deportation jokes are funny at all. I also didn't think they were funny back then. Granted, I don't think I understood what deportation was when I was
As a child, yeah.
But, and even without being in our current political crisis, jokes about deportation are just not.
No, absolutely not.
It ruins people's lives.
Literally.
It separates families. We should not be joking about deportation at all. So that's one of my roasts.
Definitely. My other roast was more lighthearted, but the scene where Steve says the M&Ms have less, or brown M&Ms have less artificial coloring. Like, you're a doctor, sir. Do you not know basic color theory? Brown has more colors. To create brown. Also, it's a candy layer on top of the chocolate. It's not just chocolate on chocolate. Sir, you are an adult man. And you don't know the makeup of an M&M. Oh, nonetheless, though, every time I eat an M&M, I think of him.
Do you really? Oh my gosh. Wait. I feel like I have some of those tropes in my life too, that whenever I do this, I think of a rom-com. So I will say, I had to fix my bed frame. It's been squeaking, and I had to take my mattress and my mattress pad off. And of course, I thought of the Princess Diaries too, where they're surfing on the mattress.
Yes, but they're sliding on the mattresses. Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's always been a dream.
Exactly. I feel like there's always something that reminds me of a rom-com whenever I do little things.
Definitely.
Okay, so one of my roasts too is, okay, this may be controversial, but this is my opinion.
Ooh.
Just dating for a really, really long time. I personally don't get that, especially if your goal is to be married, right? So Eddie and Fran had been together since college. And I just feel like people who are adults who date for a really, really long time, to me, that just shows a lack of commitment and a lack of certainty and a lack of understanding what it is that you want. And again, this is only for people who have the goal to be married. If you just want to be in partnership, you don't care to get married, whatever, do what you do. But I just feel like I have so many friends who are just in really long-term relationships who want to get married, but they're just dating for 7, 8, 10 years. And it's cool, what are you doing? What are you doing? I feel like I could have seen that coming though, the fact that I could have seen Fran and Eddie breaking up. It's just been happening quite often in my friend group lately. And it's just
yeah, I think a lot of people get so comfortable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel too, just being a chronically single person, life is technically easier with someone else. So sometimes you don't want to go back into that discomfort of being alone, or that uncertainty of being alone. And some people are just better in relationships. So they'd rather.
There's so many factors with it too. You get to know their whole world, and you get attached to their loved ones too.
Yep.
So it becomes more than just a single person. So I think that's the hardest part when it's a long-term thing that's is suspected to be leading to marriage, but you're really not sure. I think it's it encompasses so many more people in the relationship than just the two.
Absolutely, 100%. What other rows do you have, Mercedes?
Oh my goodness. So, okay, just for a second, imagine this story if Steve had to wear an engagement ring. If men had to wear an engagement ring, this story wouldn't have happened.
That's true.
So I just think that's interesting. Also, like the fact that you have no photos of your fiance in your office and you have one weird one of you, like, I don't know, like when he mentions that's his sister, that's perfect invitation to be like, oh yeah, I don't have any photos of my fiance in here right now. I'm getting them printed. I don't know. They're
You know
being
what's funny?
reframed.
You know what's funny about that photo? That's actually a picture, I think, of like the line producer or like the art director. And
Oh,
it's
really?
actually a photo of a crew member on the movie whose scene got cut. So they just like took a photo of it and put it in his office and like made a
Oh,
comment about it to
little
kind of
Easter egg.
yeah. Isn't that funny? But
That's
you're right.
funny.
You're like, who doesn't have photos of their loved ones around there? And like
Yeah.
it's a children's hospital too. Like I bet families come in there, they'd probably want to see you with someone that you love in your office too.
Exactly.
It's
And,
very
like, how charming is a pediatrician? Like, I always think of New Girl and Dr. Sam as a pediatrician, and he like, there's a whole episode where that makes him so much hotter because he, like, works with kids and he, like, takes care of kids. And,
yeah.
like, that's such a charming quality. Like, you know they made him a pediatrician on purpose for this movie because it's just such a hot job.
It is. Being a doctor, period. I feel like too, we have to note that there's also this weird kind of quirk in rom-coms where it kind of seems like they condone cheating, right? There
Mm,
were so many opportunities for Eddie to be like, hey, I'm engaged. I'm getting married. This is my
yeah.
fiance, like whatever. And I just felt like he just wanted to have his cake and eat it too. And then also, Mary wasn't very forthcoming about saying that she wasn't engaged to Massimo, even
Mhm.
after just like her blatant disdain for him. Like that scene where he comes and like Mary is with Fran and Eddie, and he's like, I'm for her fiance, and she's just like, oh, and she's just like shaking her head, and
Yeah.
it's like, you speak up, like,
Exactly, just say something.
just
And
say
then
something.
that's when Steve turns it all around on Mary and is like, "You lied to me." And it's like,
Yeah.
"Okay, no, this is not the same, first of all."
Yeah, but she like won't say it. It's like almost out of
Exactly.
spite. It's so interesting how that
It's so
happens.
weird.
Oh my gosh.
I had one other observation. This isn't really a roast, but I
Yeah.
think there's symbolism in Mary and Fran's hairstyling. Because if
Mm.
you look at it, Mary has this like tight, pulled back, perfectly styled hair all the time, like not a single flyaway, no frizz. And then you see Fran and it's more tousled and it's like in the lighting you catch all of her like frizz on top. And
Mhm.
it's just so interesting because I'm like, this had to be purposeful because like Mary's hair just looks pristine in every
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it's symbolizing. I don't know because I don't think either one is the villain. Like I said before, I think Steve is
Yeah.
the villain. But it is just interesting and I think it just shows their personality so well. It's a little detail that I appreciate.
That's so interesting that you noticed that, Mercedes. And I want to ask you, like, do you feel like there are other rom-coms you've seen where you are actually maybe rooting for the person that you're not supposed to be rooting for? Like you're rooting for someone who's not the
Yeah.
protagonist?
Yeah. I don't think you're gonna like my answer
Okay.
because I know this is a movie you really like, and it's Something Borrowed.
Ah! My heart! My heart! Wait, okay, hold on, go ahead. I can take it.
I just root for Kate Hudson. I think,
Really?
yeah, I think it's a bogus thing to do to your best friend to like start dating or like start sleeping with her fiance.
I get that, but at the same time, she was sleeping with someone else too. Okay, this is a we have to
We'll
tell
come
our
back to
producer that
this.
we need to do this episode. We're gonna have a lot to talk about. See, for me, it's 500 Days of Summer. Like I'm rooting
Ooh,
for Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character because I didn't even
wow.
realize that there was this disconnect between him and Summer of like him expecting something from her and her not owing him anything until I watched it with my friends and they're like, oh yeah, like he should have done this, he should, and I was like, oh wait, no, I felt like they should have communicated. So I feel like that's my rom-com where
Whoa,
I know,
hot take.
controversial. Well, I have a lot of thoughts about that too, so that's another
Oh yeah,
episode.
definitely. I can't wait to go back to those.
Exactly. But first, Mercedes, tell me what your favorite quote was from this movie.
Okay, I have two. And my first one is right when Steve saves Mary from the dumpster and she says,
Smell like sweet red plums and grilled cheese sandwiches.
what a combo, you know?
I mean, I just love Matthew McConaughey's like Texas accent, and I just thought it was
Yes.
really funny when he knocks over the statue and he's like,
Oh shit, Steve's stuck.
What?
Yeah, Steve's glued to his finger. Hi there.
Oh my God. That scene is crazy.
it's so crazy. I also just like Massimo's whole speech.
I know I never done the right thing. I never say the right thing. And I act like a fool. I know I say we just be buddy friends, but that would not be true to my heart. So I would ask you this one question. And if your answer is no, then I will leave you alone once and for all. Be my wife, Mary Fiore.
I rewatched that last night before I went to bed because it's just so sweet. And I just feel like everything that he's offering is what I want in my life right now. So maybe that's why it hits different.
Aw, find your Massimo.
I know. I just want my own Massimo. And also, Italy was my very first solo travel trip, so it has a special place in my heart.
Ooh, yes, that's so sweet.
Yeah. What else?
My other favorite, which I did quote in our Marry Me episode too, but I misquoted.
I'm a magnet for unavailable men.
And that's where we get the J.Lo whisper.
The J.Lo whisper. Guys, if you don't know what we're talking about, you have to go listen to last week's episode where Mercedes does a deep dive onto the science behind the J.Lo whisper.
I love the J.Lo whisper. It
It's
always
so
comes with the
interesting.
best moments.
Exactly. Okay, Mercedes. So then, if this movie popped up on your Tinder feed, would you swipe left or would you swipe right?
So I think I'm gonna have to swipe right
Mm.
for nostalgia's sake. Plus, like, I have the humor of a 12-year-old, so the statue balls scene I just love so much. Like, I'd swipe right just for that alone. It's so funny.
Absolutely. You know, so I do this thing on dating apps when I don't know about someone, if I want to swipe left or right on them, I just exit out of the app
Ooh.
and then go back in and hope that they don't pop back up for a while until I can make a decision. And I think that's what I would do with this movie because I don't know if I want to swipe left or right. Because there are moments I like about it, but then also, like I said, it's not my go-to rom-com. Like when I'm thinking,
Yeah.
gosh, I want a good J.Lo rom-com, I don't think of The Wedding Planner. So I think I would just like exit out of the app and hope that it doesn't pop back up until I have a decision made.
That's what I always do when I see a guy that I know in real life from like
Yeah.
something else. I'm like, you know, because I'm like, should I do the courtesy swipe? Like,
Yeah.
what's the deal here?
I love it. All right, guys, we're going to jump right into couples therapy. Mercedes and I just like to give dating advice to the characters on how they can improve their relationship. And I know you got some, Mercedes, so tell me your thoughts.
Yeah. So my biggest thing here is that like we don't really get to see the emotional connection between Mary and Steve.
Yeah.
And I know this is a criticism that comes up a lot with this movie where like it's driven through like physical comedy plot instead of actual character building. So
Yeah.
that's like why we're not really seeing their emotional side till later. We don't even get to hear about like Mary's fear of like marriage from like being cheated on like right before her wedding, you know,
Mhm.
like her fiance cheating on her. And like that's like a huge thing. Like we should have heard about that way before. And like we don't really get to see like their emotional bond till later on.
Mhm.
And instead we see like a lot of hijinks and like we see like the obviously like it starts off with the dumpster incident and then we see like the tango scene and then
Mhm.
even like when Steve saves Mary off that horse and like
Mhm.
there's a lot of physical comedy and a lot of just like chaos and like where they just kind of like happen to be together in that moment and you're like okay but like I want to see them get to know each other
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think it's crazy that I feel like this whole situation was just created by a lack of communication and withholding
Mhm.
information. Like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
understand guarding your heart, but I felt like they were in a position where they could have revealed a lot more about themselves. And I understand. And I just want to make sure I acknowledge this because I understand one of the scariest things when you're in a relationship or like have the desire to be in a relationship is for someone to just fully know you intimately
Mhm.
and completely. But it's also one of the most beautiful things too. And I just feel like no one is a mind reader. No one can just assume how you're feeling. And we need to just be more open and honest with each other with our feelings. I don't know. There's just this whole kind of stigma of like, I don't want to be known. I don't want to be known. And it's just, it can be so beautiful though. Like I've seen it and it's gorgeous to just not have to always explain yourself. You just have that person who just gets it. Like, I want
Yeah.
that.
Oh yes, that's the dream. Truly. It
Exactly.
is so hard and it's so scary.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
like these two have such great chemistry and like I want to see it flow into their emotional side, because like in
Hmm.
each scene like they're like magnetic with each other. And
Yeah.
I think that that speaks to them as actors too. I think they're just great. Like they balance each other out really well even when the script is kind of wonky and their characters are a little kooky at times. But exactly. Yeah, but you're so right.
Mhm. I think, like, for Mary and Eddie, I would just want them to spend time just getting to know each other because Eddie literally said in his, like, whole declaration speech, like, "I don't know you that well, but I know the curves of your face." Like,
Oh my gosh, I know the flecks of gold in your eyes.
yes, exactly. Dude, get to know my heart because those specks of gold are gonna fade when I age. The curves of my
Literally.
face, I'm gonna have a lot more of them when I age. So get to know my
So
heart.
true. Yes.
So that's my advice for them. Do you have anything else?
No, that's really it.
Yeah. And I want to know too, like, what do you think their love languages? What do you think they give and what do they receive back?
Oh my goodness. So Mary is wholeheartedly acts of service. We see that with her
Mm.
job. We see that
Mhm.
when she's willing to marry Massimo for like the sake of like her loved ones and like her dad,
Mhm.
which is nuts to me. And then but she also needs acts of service. Like
Mhm.
she is so self-sufficient and independent, but like that also that means she like she deserves care too. Like just
Yeah.
because she can do it all doesn't mean she should have to do it all. Like she deserves someone that she can rely on just as much.
Yeah. Something that's been coming up a lot during this pandemic is just like people being like, check in on your strong friends. And I feel like people forget about strong people who are
Yeah.
independent, who are self sufficient. People just don't ever think about them. And as one of those people, it's been really hard to be alone. And I would I feel like I'm very attentive to my friends and I'm
Mhm.
always showing up. And I like want that back, especially in a
Yeah.
partner. And I think you
Definitely.
deserve that back. So I
Yeah.
completely agree. I agree that Mary gives and needs acts of service. It's just like I said, it's always hard to be the caretaker. Like you want that reciprocated. It's just such a
Mhm.
big desire. Also, my Enneagram is 2 wing 3, like the helper, and so that's just kind of like
I'm a 2.
are you?
Yeah.
This is why we go so well together,
I
Mercedes.
love it.
I think for Eddie too, I think he needs quality time. Like, I
Yes.
don't know if you caught this, but he made some comment about Fran's career that kind of alluded to the fact that I think he wished that they spent more time together. I think quality time, the beautiful thing in that love language is you're really just taking time to fall in love with each other. No distractions, no other things in the way. It's just the two of you spending time together. And I always think of like my perfect romantic evening is literally just like sitting on a couch with the TV in the background and the fireplace going.
Ooh,
Like
so cozy.
it's so cozy, exactly, like a blanket. Like that's my perfect night, I guess.
Yeah. Just great one-on-one time. And like you can
Mhm.
see like his most endearing moments are when him and Mary are just talking and like
Yeah.
really getting to know each other. And yeah, like you can see like where him and Fran drift because her life is so go 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 as like a
Mhm.
businesswoman and then his life as a doctor is also really busy. So they don't hold that like space for quality time for one another. I
Mhm.
completely agree that he's quality time or he needs quality time, but I do
Yeah.
think he gives words of affirmation
Mm.
because he's so good at reassuring Mary and Fran in like moments of stress,
Mhm.
And I think that's like such like a special quality of also Matthew McConaughey. Like he's just like you want to hear him speak, And so like Steve, of course, has that like effortless magnetism,
Yeah.
even with that like weird blonde hair he has. But that's different.
Oh, when we're looking to the future, do you think this couple lasts in 5 years?
I don't think so. And I
Oh.
think it makes me sad, but like, look at Steve. Like, he's immediately jumping into another serious relationship where he's in love with this woman who he
Mhm.
barely knows after like his long term relationship that was going to lead to marriage. Like, he was engaged. Like, that's so intense. And like, I don't think he gives himself enough space to like emotionally recuperate, and just kind of regroup a little bit. And
Mhm.
then Mary, on the other end, like, she has been so, like, consistently hesitant and, like, cynical around marriage. I think she thinks of it as, like, so much more of, like, business, as, like, wedding
Yeah.
than the actual, like, act at this point because she's been hurt. And I think it's hard. I wish them the best, but I don't believe it.
I agree with you, Mercedes, but I do want to ask you just one thing that you said. You had mentioned that like Eddie is jumping from one relationship to another. He needs some emotional recuperation. I'm curious if you think it's possible for that to happen when you're in a very, very long term relationship, right? Because I feel like when you're in a long-term relationship that stretches like 7, 8 years, there is a time where you just stop, you know, you just stop loving and having those feelings for the other person. So you essentially feel single while you're still in a relationship. And I only say this because I have a friend that has a beautiful love story. And I know that her husband was in a relationship for like 11 years. And then
Wow.
they got together like not too long after that. They've been married for a really long time now. But I'm just curious if you believe that that can happen while you're in a long-term relationship. Like you just kind of start acting and living single even though you are with someone else.
I think it can definitely happen. I think that's like when you put aside the romance of it, like there's not like the romantic love there, but I think you still have love and care for that person. I don't know. It almost becomes like ending like a long-term friendship. That's still like an emotional taxing thing to do,
Yeah.
Even if you're not like really romantically involved with the person you're with anymore, it's still a huge change.
100%. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Guys, we're going to move into Heartthrob. Mercedes and I just like to gush about the guys in this movie or who we like in this movie. Okay, so Mercedes, tell me who you would bring home to your friends and your loved ones and introduce them to.
Oh my God, Steve, the hot doctor.
Steve, the hot doctor.
But like, I would need to change his early 2000s blonde hair. Like, it's yellow. It's not like it's so bad. Like, who did that to him? It's terrible.
It was the style back then, Mercedes. You wouldn't know you were only
True.
5, but it was the style.
That like bleached look. Oh my God.
That was also the era where like guys were wearing jeans with flip-flops, and that was I hated that look. Chad Michael Murray used to rock that look all the time. And it was so are you cold or are you hot? What's going on here?
Chad Michael Murray.
Chad
man.
Michael Murray, that's a whole other conversation. I would bring home Massimo.
Of course.
I'm a huge fan of his because I think he's so dorky, but I also feel like he's a type of man who would go out of his way to make sure that he is providing for you and taking care of you and making sure that you feel loved every single day. I feel like
Yeah.
even if he only had like $5 in his wallet, he'd spend that $5 on flowers and to bring them home to me because he knows that they would make me smile. And then he'd just not have money for the rest of the week, but he would do that. And I love that and I need that.
He does have such an open heart. It is so funny at the end when he just sees one random woman and he's like, oh, hello.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
completely distracted once again.
All right, guys, we are going to play Marry, Smooch, Ghost. If you remember from last week, we just want to make this segment a little bit more relatable to us, and so we decided to change the title. So it is now Marry, Smooch, Ghost, and so we have Steve, Massimo, and I just included Keith, who was Mary's ex, who we run into at the flower shop. So tell me, Mercedes, who would you marry, who would you smooch, and who would you ghost?
I'm ghosting Keith.
Yeah.
I think I would marry Massimo and smooch Steve just to like nix the cheaters. Like emotional cheating, still cheating.
Yeah.
So, like I'm like, no, I can't
Mercedes,
do it.
is this the first time that we're agreeing on Marry, Smooch, Ghost?
Oh my God.
What?
Really?
I am 100% with you there. Marrying Massimo, but like, I mean, you could have called that from the beginning.
Yeah.
Switching Steve and ghosting Keith. Okay, yay! Fist pump.
Wow, that's a historical moment for us.
I love that. All right, guys, before we wrap it up, we always just love to bring in a pop culture moment. You know, it's so funny. So this movie is 21 years old. But last year
Wow.
for the 20th anniversary, J.Lo and Matthew McConaughey reunited on YouTube. And I just thought that was lovely. They've, again, both... I still think Matthew McConaughey is beautiful.
Yeah, he's a little leathery, like skin wise, but like he's very interesting, that man.
Man, I know, right?
Oh my God. Okay, also, did you know? So this movie premiered Super Bowl weekend in 2001, and it was #1 in the box office that weekend. And that same week, J.Lo's second album, titled J.Lo, went #1 on Billboard 200. And she's the first person in the US to ever have this happen.
Wow.
Yeah,
She was having a
And-
good month.
exactly. And funny enough, Marry Me premiered Super Bowl weekend this past year. I mean, this
Yeah.
year.
That's true. Well, J.Lo's just going to take over the Super Bowl. And then she performed at the Super Bowl, too. How many years ago?
Yes.
2 years?
I don't understand time anymore.
I know, right? These past 2 years have just been 1 year, essentially. But guys, we want to know your thoughts about The Wedding Planner. Is it your go-to rom-com? Do you like Mary? Do you like Steve? Or maybe you're a Massimo fan just like me? Make sure to slide into our DMs at Meet Cute. Again, I'm Kendra. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Ken10Hollywood.
Yes, and I'm Mercedes. You can find me at MercedesGV11 at Twitter, IG, and TikTok. And if you're looking for new rom-coms, follow Meet Cute wherever you listen to podcasts and follow Meet Cute on socials everywhere. Bye, everyone.
We'll see you next week.